Righto guys, welcome to Creepers Cryptid and Paranormal Corner. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Episode 6 was going to be an interview with either Attila Cordy or Yowie Dan. I was going out last week with them, into the bush with them. They're actually filming the new documentary Tracking the Law. So it's the second documentary of the track series. So I was going to interview them out in the field, actually do a video on that and do something a bit different, try and spice it up a bit. But unfortunately, Yowie Dan couldn't come. He hurt his back during the week at work, and so he couldn't tag along. And me and Attila went out, and we had a lot of fun. Seen a lot of stuff, heard a few things and stuff like that. Every time we sort of sat down, I thought, yeah, it might be a good time to at least do an interview with Attila. Sort of had a bit of stuff going on around us, so we just kept chatting all afternoon and got carried away talking about what he's done so far with the documentary and a few of the things they've seen and found. And whenever we sort of spoke about it, we'd heard a few things and that, so I didn't really want to interrupt what might have happened while we were out there. And eventually, time come around, I actually thought, it might be a good time to do it, and it started to piss down rain, and I think it took us about 45 minutes to get back to the car, and pissing down rain in the dark. So we didn't really get to do that, but hopefully over the next couple of weeks I'll be able to get the interviews with those guys out. I think I might be going out again next weekend with the boys. They're going out to do a bit more filming for the documentary, so hopefully I get a chance to have a chat with them then. If not, I might even get one of them on the show before then, or if not, we'll just go from there, see how we go. But till then, guys, I thought I'd do an episode of a couple of other encounters I've had over the years and odd things that's happened. And yeah, I haven't seen some of the things. I hadn't actually seen what it was or anything like that, but it was enough to know something dodgy was going on. So, but to kick the show off, I reckon I might go into my 3 encounters with a big cat. I know over the last couple of episodes and that I've sort of spoke about it, but I might get into them a bit and then I'll go from there. So hope you guys enjoy it. Cheers. Righto guys, so I'll kick this episode off with my first big cat encounter. Happened about 11-12 years ago. Just cruising up to my mate's house. It was probably 8-9 o'clock on a Saturday night. I was going up there to go have a couple of beers, watch some movies and that. A couple of my other mates were already up there waiting for us and stuff, so cruise up there, and I was only probably about 5 to 6 minutes away from his place, and you get to a spot up in Western Sydney going up towards Burragong Valley and stuff that you go right into real thick bush, and you're going through some big S-bends and stuff like that just before you get to there's an old mine up there, and that's just before the start of my mate's town, so I wasn't far off it. Like I was saying, about 5 or 6 minutes. I actually come around a big sweep and bend. It went to the right, and then as it come back to the left, I just seen this creature jumped out of the bush, landed on the double white lines in the middle of the road, and then jumped straight into the bush on the other side. It doesn't sound like much, but it was a cat, massive cat, like it was bigger than its back would have stood higher than me bonnet in me. I had a VE Commodore back then, which aren't a small car, but just the way it leapt out, how far it had jumped, and then jumped into the bush, gone. It was a space of a second, was just gone. It doesn't sound too much, it sounds like much, but you look at a little country road, you got single lane either way. You're looking at about probably 3.5, 4 meters wide the road. Every little country town you go into the bush, there's always, most places, if the council's keeping up the date, they usually mow 1 meter to 1.5 meters, like a nature strip either side of the road, so it's easier for you to see the wombats or kangaroos coming out before you hit them in the dark. Gives you a bit more of a chance of not having an accident. So this creature's actually jumped out of the bush, so it's jumped, cleared the nature strip, cleared half the road, landed in the middle, and then leapt straight into the bush in the other side too. So it's a massive jump when you think about it, and little house cat's not going to do that. Little house cat, I would have known it was a little house cat. This was a big cat. But the thing that got me, it wasn't black. And since then, most of the stories I've heard of big cats in New South Wales and the Blue Mountains and Western Sydney, stuff like that, they're being big black panther or puma looking cats. This one was actually a tan colour. It looked more like a mountain lion or a cougar from America. So at first, when I first seen it, I went, oh, what the hell's that? And then when I realised how big it was, and how long its tail was, and the fact that it leapt out of the bush on the lines and then leapt again. Like, dog would have run out, dog wouldn't have jumped, and kangaroos and stuff, like, you see a kangaroo, you know it's a kangaroo. You see a wombat, you know it's a wombat. This was a big cat, tan colour, like I say, and big cougar or mountain lion, which I thought. Since I had this encounter too, I've spoke to a few people and that, and a lot of the old coal truck drivers would actually say that nearly 60 years they'd be coming out of the mines and they'd get to a certain area on this strip of road, and nearly every morning they'd see a big black panther just off to the side of the road, sitting sort of on an old tree stump, always cleaning itself and that. And yeah, most of them, they'd see it nearly every day, and that's crazy when you think not supposed to be big cats in Australia, and for that to go on for 60 years, people are still seeing cats and that now. Like, it's not just an odd pet that's been let go, or a big cat's got away from a circus, or I know out at Warragamba there was African lion safari, stuff like that. Like, you couldn't just have two, like a male and a female, get out and start a complete breeding population. There's got to be heaps more. And like I was saying, they've seen a black cat. I've seen a tan colour one. I've gone into it on the last couple of episodes and stuff like that, and I spoke to a few people and they said I've seen a tan one. It could have actually either been a panther, and they've started to evolve over the years and the colours change sort of for the environment they're living in and that. But then other people are saying that maybe I've seen it's supposed to be extinct marsupial lion, and that's the colour of the marsupial lion. Used to be a tan colour, sort of like a cougar, sort of more like a cougar colour than a panther and that. And yeah, so it was really odd, and for me to see it, and I locked up the brakes, and yeah, it was only a second, it was gone. There was no sign of it anywhere again. I've heard stories of other people seeing them up there, and people actually getting plaster casts of footprints they found down in the valley and stuff like that, and massive big panther like footprints, not little tabby cats or even a feral cat that's got a bit big. Like, these were bigger than that in most people's hands. Like, that's a massive paw print. That's a massive cat. I've heard stories of goats being found up trees, like more than 3 or 4 times I've heard this, and not just one goat. There could be 5 or 6 at a time. Like, we don't have predators that will take down a goat and do that, and we definitely don't have predators that will drag a goat or a sheep or a lamb, anything they can get, up into a tree and leave it in a fork of a tree so they could eat it later, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what the big panthers and jaguars and stuff like that will do. They'll get their prey, take them down, go stash them up in a tree so another cat can't get to it, or dogs can't get to it. I know in this area there's dingoes and stuff like that. Like, could have been putting it up there so the dingoes didn't get it, or the foxes. I've heard that plenty of times, and the more you talk to people, the more encounters with this creature there is. Like, it's just, there's too many now to just put it down to, oh yeah, someone's just misidentified an animal. There's definitely big cats out there, and like I was saying, that was about 11-12 years ago, and I had that little encounter. And now my next encounter with a big cat was July, August last year. I'm hopeless with dates, like I was saying. I have to look it up. I've got the video on my YouTube of some of the stuff I'd seen that was actually the next week after the first encounter with this black panther in the area. I was going out to my auntie's place. She lives in the same sort of area as my first encounter. You get to a town, and you have to drive probably 10-minute drive into the thick bush to get to her place. There's a couple of big sweeping bends you go through, and you take a big right-hand turn. You get down to the bottom, that's probably about 200 metres, and you take a real hard left. And as I come around this left-hand turn, I was actually on the phone to my missus at the time, and as I come around the corner, I went, holy fuck, there's a panther. This big black panther had actually stepped out on the road as I've come around the bend, and I'd straightened up. My high beams hit it straight in the face, and its back would have stood higher than my hips. Like, it was a massive cat. And the fact that as soon as my lights hit it, I straightened up. My lights hit it perfectly. It's turned around and spun and went straight back in the same bush. And the first thing I thought was, holy shit, look how big this thing is. And then the next thing I thought was, look how long its tail is. His body was gone, and it felt like half a second before its tail went. There's a big black panther, and like I was saying, like, you can't misidentify these animals. If you watch documentaries and you see black panthers, pumas, even jaguars and that, you see you see what they look like. You can't misidentify them with a big dog or a wild pig or a kangaroo. This was a big black panther, and I couldn't believe it. Even my missus said to me on the phone, like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm telling you, I just came around this bend, and as soon as I straightened up, there was a big black panther just about to cross the road." As everyone knows, most of the roads in Australia, they're supposed to have the reflector poles I think it's every 100 metres or so, and when you come around a bend, they usually have a few of them if they don't have an Armco barrier and stuff like that. But where this spot was, and I actually had this panther come out, there was a reflector pole on the side of the road there, and most of them sit at about a metre off the ground, the reflection part on the pole. So when this panther's turned around and headed back into the bush, I actually lost sight of it over when the panther's back went in front of it. So that's a big cat. Like that's huge just to its back. So you think their heads stand a bit higher than that too. Like it's a massive cat. So I went out to my aunties that night and had a look around and stuff like that. I just wanted to go out to. It wasn't even to go out there to look for cats. I was actually going out there to look for any signs of yowies or dogman. Went out with my GoPro on that, and we didn't see anything. And I was telling her about the cat I'd seen up the road, and she'd actually said that a few people had mentioned they'd seen one around. So that was pretty cool. So the next weekend, I'd gotten me night vision camera. I've got a little Sony AX53. It's got night vision capabilities. The stock night vision, and it's not too good, but I've actually got a booster and stuff. So I'll actually go into an episode one day and I'll do it on all my gear I've got and the little tweaks I've done to them and just the accessories I have to try and catch these creatures on camera. So anyway, so I've gone out the next weekend, and this is my third encounter with big cats. I went out there, I wanted to go for a walk around with a night vision camera, and my little cousin wanted to tag along, and she took me to a few spots that she thought were cool and thought we'd check out at night. The first spot we actually got to, we heard some weird noises, and when we were walking, we just got to this fence line, and we were going to walk down into a bit of a gully. And off to the left of us, you could actually hear something massive, and it was walking in the bush, and even to this day, it actually sounded like it was on 2 feet. So like I was saying, I've got to get out there again with the cameras now, especially now I've got the boosted IR and stuff like that, and really check the area out at night. But anyway, we sort of heard that noise, and we thought, what's that? And heard some weird noises down in front of us, and like I was saying, I've got the video on YouTube, you can check it out, and in the video on that, and you can actually see a little rabbit comes hopping out of the bush, and we thought, oh, that's cool, little rabbit. Then all of a sudden it started getting followed by another animal, and couldn't work out what it was at first, and it was actually a cat. So this thing, it was actually, now we know it was a cub. It was bigger than a house cat, and it was a little baby. Like you could tell it was a baby the way it was moving and stuff, but it was still massive compared to a house cat. Jet black, shape of a panther. You could see the head, the tail, everything. And it was sort of just cruising along behind the rabbit and sort of touching it with its foot. It was like it was playing with it, like learning how to hunt. And the rabbits jumped through the fence, and the panther little cubs try to follow it, and this actually jumped into the fence and got caught in the fence, and you could hear it going batshit crazy trying to get out of this chicken wire stuff. And we thought, oh, it's a bit weird. Anyway, it must have got through and it was gone, and decided to go for a walk down the back. And now down the back of the property, actually, you can go down through there and you'll get down to a river system. And there's no weir and stuff, and no one can go down there because it's all private property, like my auntie's property and all the other properties around, and all the other side of the river's the same as all private property, so it's not just somewhere anyone can just rock up to. So I'm going to do a night down there as well with the camera and check it all out. But we thought we'd go for a walk down to the furthest part of the property and have a look. And as we were going, we almost got to this gateway, and it's sort of almost at the back of the property. And out to our right, we'd actually hear something walking again, and yeah, it was weird and it sounded really odd. And then you heard it run off, and we thought, oh, couldn't tell it was on 2 feet. I actually thought maybe it was a deer or something like that. While we're concentrating that, we almost got to this gateway, and as we went to go in there to have a look, you actually heard this big hiss, and it wasn't just a tabby cat or a house cat hissing or a wild cat. The hiss that we heard, you see the old country western movies from back in the 40s and stuff like that, and you hear a big cat hiss in that, and then the camera pans around and there's a cougar standing there next to a tree or something, and it's pawing at the person like it's about to attack and stuff. But this was a big cat hiss, and the noise of it was crazy, and it hissed, and we both went, oh shit, and as it hissed, it's turned around, it must have jumped or hit the fence. It's a big massive bang, and then you heard the cat jump through the fence, get over the fence, and actually take off. Now the sound of this cat hitting this fence, it was 10 times bigger than the little cub we'd seen. The little cub was going through the fence going nuts, and it was barely making a noise. This noise after the hiss, it was so friggin' loud. It was a massive, I reckon. So what we reckon we've seen little cub out cruising around learning how to hunt while Big Mama was standing in the bush just out of sight keeping an eye on the cub while it was learning. So that's happened, and we decided, yep, we'll sort of head back to the house. And on the way back to the house, there was a few more things we heard walking around in the bush around us and stuff. So there's definitely more out there than big cats. And I know for a fact in the area there's been yowie sightings and stuff like that. So we've got to get out there and check that stuff out. But we're actually heading back to the house, and I got my little cousin to ring up her mum and say, hey, we're on the way back. Just go out the back and have a smoke or something, and just chill out to see. Hopefully, maybe the big cat might run up past the house trying to get away from us. So anyway, on the way back, we sort of headed back to that first area where we were seeing the cub, and we thought, we'll check it out a bit. And my auntie actually come down in the car and looking for us because she couldn't get onto us because there's bad service up there. So we thought we'd go down and check it out a bit more. And while we're down in the footage, you see it too. Like we started to head down back into that bit of a creek. We were going to go check out in the first place. We got down into the gully. Sorry, not the creek. We're going down to the gully, and you could actually hear a big cat walking through the bush on the opposite side of the gully to us. The sound of this cat hitting the ground was nuts. It sounded like a bloody German Shepherd or a Ridgeback or big Rottweiler or something stepping through the bush. Like, this wasn't a little kitty walking through. This is Big Mama was probably checking on us to see what we were doing. We started getting closer down to the gully, and you actually heard the cat, like this big panther, let out another hiss. Now I got in the recordings, you can hear both the hisses. I recorded it, so you can check it out and have a look. But it's not loud compared to what it was like in person. And when that happened, even my auntie was up at the car. As soon as that hiss started, it went off. My auntie actually flicked the big spotty on the area, and we're trying to look, and we sort of headed back up to the car. Then it got a bit sketchy, and we thought, nah, we can get out of here. We don't have any guns on us. I had a big Bowie knife, but it's not going to stop a panther if it wants to get us. It's not going to help us. So we headed back to the car, and we sort of hung out for a bit to see if we'd hear anything else, but we didn't end up hearing anything else. So we headed back up to the house, and that was that. Now I was going to go out there the next couple of weeks after that, but it's when all the COVID kicked off and all the lockdowns, and we weren't allowed to leave our houses and stuff like that. And like, I could have gone up there and stuff, but just didn't. So which is spewing. So over the next couple of months and that, I'm going to hopefully get up there and do a bit more investigation, and there we see some big cats or some yowies or dogman or stuff. But yeah, so that was me 3 encounters with big cats in Australia. So like I was saying, they say they're not out there, it's all a lie and stuff like that, but I've had 3 encounters with them now, and they weren't all the same cat. So they can lie about it as much as they like. It's the truth's out there, the encounters are out there, reports are out there. There's more than just one cat out there. There's big cats in Australia, whether they're natives or there is a breeding population of feral cats, like whether they come from the war, World War II and stuff like that. American soldiers had them as their mascots, and I've heard stories of them being let out into the bush after the war was ended and they were heading home. Heard of people having big cats as pets, and they've got too big and didn't like them anymore, so they let them go. Like, still doesn't explain why there's so many of them. And the main thing is maybe there is a native big cat still lurking the bushes. Like I was saying, maybe they're the marsupial lions. There's cave paintings with Aboriginals, big cats. There's stories of them hunting the big cats because they used to kill the Aboriginals and take kids and eat them and stuff like that. And that's going back 100,000 years. So there's always been big cats here. It just depends if these ones are the same big cats, like if they're ancestors of them or they're introduced ones. But they're definitely out there. So just keep an eye out when you go out in the bush at night. They'll whack you before a yowie or a dogman does anyway. Next encounter I'm going to get into was a couple of the odd encounters I had over in the same river system as me dogman encounters. Now, most of these were in the first couple of trips I took over there before the first encounter with the dogman when it charged me and was roaring in the bush. So I'd been over there a few times, and in these couple of trips, I was saying before, one trip I was paddling up the river and I could see something up in the tree and thought it was one of them big mistletoe knots that the gum trees get, where the mistletoe bird will spread the seeds in there and the mistletoe will actually take over the gum tree. It's sort of like it's not a vine, but it sort of acts like a vine, but it will take over and actually suck the nutrients out of the tree and grow bigger, and eventually the mistletoe tree will take over the gum tree will die and the mistletoe will live on. So I was paddling up the river and actually seen this up in a tree, and I thought, wow, that's a massive mistletoe knot. Like, this thing was 4 foot wide, right at the top of this massive gum tree. Would have been 25 metres tall, like a big, massive old gum tree. So, wow, that's a big mistletoe knot. And I got a bit close and I went, you know what, that mistletoe knot looks like it's got a face in the middle of it. And I sort of had a bit of a laugh and thought it was real odd. And like I was saying, this was before me dogman encounters, so I didn't know what was over there. And so I've paddled off, and where this was, it's opposite a little creek that runs off the main river. I actually went up there for a fish and mucked around up there for about 10 minutes, and by the time I got back, I was looking at that same tree, and I was like, you know what, shit, that mistletoe knot, it's gone. And that freaked me out. I thought, what the hell was that thing? There was a big creature up the top of this tree, and it was looking at me. I seen its face and everything, but being naive in that, and being a different river system to me Yowie sightings, even though it was only, this actually had happened before the second encounter at the river system near my place with the Yowies, when I went out with my brother-in-law fishing. So it'd been 12 months since I had a bluff charge, and I didn't even think anything of this thing up in the tree. Like I was saying, I thought it was a mistletoe knot and didn't take photos of it or anything. It was right on sunrise, so you couldn't really see it. Like, if I took a photo with my camera, it wouldn't have come out anyway, but it was enough for me to see it, and I could see a face and stuff. So when like I was saying, 10 minutes later I come back, I was like, holy shit, that thing's gone. Whatever that was, it was massive, and it's gone. So that sort of freaked me out, and nothing else really happened that trip, and I didn't see anything else, and it was really weird, and I've been back a few more times than that, and it definitely was a misidentification. Even being in the same lighting and that, there was definitely no mistletoe or even a darker spot of the tree. Like, this was actually a big creature at the top of the tree, and I'd really like to know what it was, whether it was this dogman I've been encountering over there or even a Yowie. And in America and stuff like that, you hear about the Sasquatch or Bigfoot actually living in the same area as the dogman and coexisting and stuff like that. So there's a chance it's that, or even, like I was saying, maybe it was just dogman. It might have been my actual first encounter with dogman, I didn't know. But it was really odd. And there was another trip I went over there, and this was actually this was after my dogman encounters. I'd been over there, it was a while after it, and actually I went back to the spot where I got the same launching spot that I got the photos, and there was no way in hell I was going down the river because of what had happened. And I was only going for an hour. I just needed to get out and go for a bit of a fish, and trying to get over being so scared. Like, I was just terrified of going into the river and going fishing after these encounters I'd had, because I was just always worried something was going to take me. So I've actually gone to this spot, headed up river, or like I was saying, I went opposite direction to where I was stalked by the dogman and got the photos. And as I was paddling up, I'd made a pole up for me GoPro. I could stick in the seat behind me in my kayak it was like a boom mount, so I could record then. So I had my GoPro going at all times in case I had an encounter and that. Anyway, as I was going through a section, I was casting at this big tree, and I could hear this thing. It was sprinting up and down the bush line, just up the bank. So in this spot of the river, this section of the river, on the left-hand side, the bank's actually sitting at probably 2 or 3 metres higher than the actual river. So you can sort of get out of the edge. There's sort of a little bit of a bank, and then you go about a metre, and then it goes up 2 or 3 metres. It's like where there's been a bit of a collapse, so in a flood or something, it's washed away part of the bank, so it's just a big cliff edge. But this creature was just out of sight of this 2-3 metre bank, and you could hear it running. It would run 50 metres up in the bush, stop, and I'd have another cast, and then I'd hear it run 50 metres back past me and stop. And now this creature was running on 2 feet. You could hear it running. But the thing was, it was running that fast. I reckon it would have been running faster than Usain Bolt has ever run in the world. This thing was absolutely moving. And you could hear it every step it was taking, and the thumping noise of its feet hitting the ground. Like, there's no doubt that this was a dog man again. But again, why didn't the creature get me? I reckon it was playing games with me. I don't think that's going to hurt me, and I hope I'm right, because if I'm wrong, you just won't hear from me anyway. But I don't think this creature's going to hurt me. But I think it was just playing funny buggers. This went on for about 5 or 6 minutes. Every time my lure would hit the water, it'd run past again and stop. And then I'd wind in, and as soon as that lure hit the water, bang, it'd run back past me. And it kept doing this, and actually had me, like I was saying, I had the GoPro going, and there's probably only a section of about 10 seconds you can hear. At one stage it runs past, and you can hear it running through in the bush. So I'm going to put this video up. I'll put it up the next couple of days or whatever, and I'll try and boost it up so you can actually hear it properly, because like I was saying, the GoPro audio, unless you're sitting right in front of the GoPro, the audio is absolutely pus in them. This was an older one. The newer ones are a lot better now, but it wasn't even that old. I think I got it in 2018. I think it's it come out in between the 4 and the 5, or it might have been the 5 and the 6, and it's just called GoPro Hero. So it was still a decent one. Like, it's a bit cheaper. It didn't have the 4. I don't think it's got the 4K, but it's not as good as the newer model that came out after it, but it was still good enough for footage and stuff. Like, you can see the footage of when I had the encounter with the dog man. The same thing, you could barely hear what I was hearing. Now I've got my new camera and that, I've got to get out more and stop being a pussy and get out, even if I go out by myself, and hopefully I can catch something with my new camera. But yeah, so I'll put that video up, and you can actually hear the creature running past at one stage, and I just thought that was really odd. Now the next encounter, this happened, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and when it happened, it actually scared the piss out of me. I still to this day don't know what it is. I've spoke to a few people, and a couple of people even said maybe it was even a dog man. But I was going for a fish just from my house to the river. It's probably about a 2-minute drive to a boat ramp, and I was meeting my friend. He was actually fishing off the back of the property he works at. And he said, "Oh, you should come up and meet me, blah, blah, blah." And so I took my kayak down, and back then I actually had had a bigger kayak, and I had an electric motor and battery and stuff on it. So I jumped in it, and I cruised up with the electric motor. I reckon full crank, I used to get up to about 6 kilometers an hour, which doesn't sound much, but when you're in a kayak, it feels like you're absolutely flying. So the paddle up to where he was fishing is usually about an hour and a half, and going in my little electric motor in my kayak, I'd do it in about half an hour. So it was wicked. You pump up there, went for a fish with him for a couple of hours, and I was only going to go for an hour or so and then head back. Going out fishing with your mate, you get carried away in that and stuffing around, and by the time it come around, it was actually dark, and he didn't have enough space on his ute to take me home, so I had to cruise back in the dark. I had a little headlamp back then. It was pretty shit. You couldn't see much. But I'd only got probably 5 minutes into the trip home, and I heard something big moving through the bush, and I thought, that's a bit odd, and sort of flicked the light over where I heard it and couldn't see anything, and kept cruising along with electric motor and cranking along, and heard a bit more noise in the bush, and then I heard a big splash into the water. And I thought, whoa, shit, that's weird. And I turned around and had a look. You couldn't see anything. The old light I had, like I was saying, was pretty shit. You couldn't see far. It's probably about 25 metres, 30 metres you could see clear, and then the rest was sort of just shit. You couldn't pick out anything. Anyway, I couldn't see anything, so I just kept cruising, and the electric motor, it's pretty quiet and stuff, but you still make a bit of noise, like the kayak splashing through the water and that, and every probably 10 to 20 metres I'd go in the kayak, whatever it was actually swimming after me. Every 10 to 20 metres, you'd actually hear it come up and go, like it breathed. And if anyone's been around horses swimming, if you heard a horse swim, the way they breathe through their nostrils when they're in the water, it's so loud, and that's what this sounded like. But there was no horse behind me. Whatever this creature was, it was swimming after me, following me, staying out of sight of me light. Like I was saying, out of that 25 to 30 metres behind me, staying out of sight. And I don't know if it was actually going underwater and coming back up and blowing like that with its nose, or like breathing like that, or it was just how loud it was when it was breathing, paddling along. I know I puff when I'm swimming around doing doggy paddle and stuff like that. But this went on for 10 minutes. Still hear it every 10, 15 minutes. Like, it was nuts, whatever this thing was. And I even tried, at one stage, I turned the motor off and stopped, and I thought maybe this thing will get a bit closer and I'll be able to see what it is. And I was thinking, what the hell, like, it's not a wombat, it's not a kangaroo, it's not going to get in the river and swim after me. And I was saying, little kayak motor, get to about 6.5 kilometers an hour. This thing was keeping up with me, and it was staying just out of sight, and it followed me for the whole way back, like 20 minutes. About 20 minutes from where I'd left, you go under a big overhead bridge, and it's lit up like a candle. And this creature followed me until I actually got under the bridge, and I never heard it again. Then it was like it was too bright, and the creature knew not to follow me. Heard a bit of a rustling and that, and whatever it was actually climbed out of the water and was gone. Now, it scared the shit out of me. This was before I'd had me yowie encounter down the river where I was bluff charged. This was way before the dog man, all that. I'd had the one encounter with a yowie years and years ago at me Nenapop's farm, but I'd never heard of anything climbing into the water and following someone, let alone being in the pitch black. And people have said to me, "Oh, it must have been a bunyip." Everyone talks about the bunyips, like I had talked about it in the last episode, and yeah, I just thought it was really weird. Whatever it was, climbed into the water, swum for 20 minutes following me. Like, fuck, it's a good trip. I couldn't swim 20 minutes straight, let alone keeping up 6.5 kilometers an hour. Like, it was moving. I've actually talked to a couple of guys in America. They've had encounters with Dogman swimming around and stuff like that. Like, who's to say this wasn't Dogman? I've heard they're that good as swimmers. They'll swim up to cargo ships and stuff like that, climb onto them, and that's how they get into different countries and stuff like that. And some of it sounds like bullshit, but it makes sense. Like, how these creatures just turning up all of a sudden. Like, I've heard stories that, like, the guys in America actually said to me when I'm out in my kayak, be careful, because they swim that fast that even if I'm paddling, they're probably going to take me down. So always make sure I've got something with me, some sort of weapon to defend myself if they come after me. They've seen it happen. They've seen them. They've caught sight of them in water because they've heard a noise and had a look what it was, and actually seen a dog man swimming across a lake and stuff like that. Like, they get in the water and they swim around. And it sounds weird. Like, you think, oh, maybe not. But I've had a few things over the years, and I'm starting to think now maybe this dog man's been around for a bit longer than I thought. Now, I'd actually forgotten about this. I think I was like 4 or 5 at the time. Dad used to work night shift. It wasn't really night shift, but he did the milk run with me pop. So he'd get up to go to work at 2 in the morning. They'd go and collect up all the milk they had to, and then go and deliver it. And they'd be home 9 o'clock each day or something. And then in the afternoon, they'd go out and collect some more milk up and deliver it again. And anyway, the days that he was working, he'd sleep in the spare room. So Mum didn't get woken up. He's like me, we're hopeless at waking up in the mornings and that. So Pop would always come down, knock on the window to wake him up, so he knew so he could get up and get ready for work and that. Anyway, the spare room was right next to my room, and I remember waking up to a noise at the window, and I looked out and I seen a dog. Anyway, being 4 or 5 scared the crap out of me, and I ran and jumped into Dad's bed and said, "There's a dog outside," and he thought, "Oh yeah, whatever, go to sleep, whatever." And I ended up sleeping in the bed with him. I was that scared. Anyway, I'd just fallen asleep. I heard a noise again, and I lifted up the blind in the spare room, and there was a dog. Its paws were actually up on the windowsill, and it was looking in the window at me. And it was the weirdest thing. Like, after, like, Dad reminded me about it, and we were talking about it, and as soon as he mentioned it, I remembered it clear as day, and it scared the shit out of me. There was a dog jumped up, put its paws on the windowsill, and yeah, it was actually had its head leant forward, and it was looking in the window. And when I lifted the blinds up, it was looking me in the eyes, dead in the eyes, and it scared the shit out of me. And I screamed and dropped the blinds, and Dad woke up, and I said, "There's a dog out there. It was just at the window." And I remember saying, "No, it's alright. It's just out the front mucking around." I said, "It was right at the window. I remember seeing it. It was looking straight at me." He went, "Yeah, whatever. Just go to sleep. It's nothing." And then couple of minutes later, you heard a bang out the front, and a pot plant got smashed, and he jumped up then and ran out and flicked the light on and had a look around and stuff, and couldn't find anything, but yeah, and he'd only reminded me, we were only talking about this after I had me Dogman encounters, and he actually said to me, he goes, how do you know this creature hasn't been around for a long time? And because the place that I had the encounters, it's half an hour away. It sounds like it's miles away, but if you look at my area on the map, the bush actually follows our river system, goes up probably 20, 30 k's, but then it diverts off, and then but that same bushland that's been following the river actually goes around in sort of a C shape and connects up to this bush area that this other river system's on, and then it continues on to where I had the encounters. So he said to me, he goes like, how do you know that's not the same thing you seen when you were a kid? Because even he said, he goes, that dogs don't lean on windowsills and looking in at night. There's no lights on. They wouldn't have seen anything. When I lifted that blind up, like I said, it had a pause on the windowsill and it was looking me dead in the eyes. Didn't make a noise or even move. It was just staring at me. And yeah, it might have been it as a pup or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you call younger dog man and that. Like, for it, the bush area, like the bush and that to be connected up like that, it could have been. And the fact that I remember saying to him, Dad, it looked like a police dog. And I kept saying a police dog. It was a police dog. And he, yeah, whatever, it's not a police dog, blah, blah, blah. And that was how that's what I used to call German Shepherds, a police dog. And that's what it looked like. It was dead at night, so it looked black and that. I didn't see it, but that was the shape of its head. I seen its eyes and that's what it was. It looked like a police dog. And then you look at my photos that I've gotten over at the other river system, and it looks like a big massive German Shepherd, cross the German Shepherd or a wolf or something like that. Like, it could be the same creature. It could have been cruising around, and the other encounters I've had down the bush at the river and that, it could have been this dog man the whole time. It mightn't have been yowies and stuff, but just really odd. And then I remember it was a year or two after that, we're all sitting in the lounge room one Saturday night, and we're watching a movie, and we heard a bang on the roof. And our house, like the house we're in then, the front of the house is just a single story, and then you get to the back end, and the property is on a slope to the point that the back of the house was actually 2-story to compensate for the fall of the land. So under the back, like the back end of the house, Mum and Dad's room was the back room. Underneath there was a full laundry and bottom room underneath it. So it's pretty high at the back anyway. So something's landed on the front of the roof, and we all sort of went, huh? And we paused the movie and went, what was that? And then you heard something take a couple of steps, and then there was another big bump, and then a bump, 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 and then, yeah, that was it. And as it went bump, 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 we all jumped up and ran outside to see what it was. We flicked the lights on, and there was nothing there. So it was a cat or a possum or even a koala or something had gotten on the roof. The last bang noise was at the back of the house. If it had fallen off the roof and hit the ground, it would have been dead, or it would have been laying there. When by the time we got out there, whatever the animal was hit the ground would have been still there. We would have seen it. And after all the Dogman encounters and that, I even said maybe that was that same friggin' dog that I'd seen at the window. Maybe it was Dogman, and it could have been up on, because we had a big tree out the front. You could climb up it. I couldn't do it, but you could climb up, and the branches were right near the house. So if someone wanted to, it could have jumped from the tree, landed on the roof and that. And it was bigger than a cat landing on the roof, and whatever it was, whether it tripped or it was it running down the roof and then jumped off the back, like it was big, not massive, but sounded like a human. And if it was a human, they would have been dead. We would have found him at the backyard with broken legs, so it wouldn't have landed and not hurt themselves. And for us to get out there and go, what the hell, there's nothing there, when oh yeah, it must have been a stupid cat or something. But yeah, it was just after this Dogman encounter and sitting around talking to me dad about that, and started remembering all that stuff had happened. Like, these creatures might have been around for a long, long time and not following me, but it's in my area. Like, I might have had multiple encounters with this creature, and I've said on other podcasts and that, I've been down the river in the morning before the sun come up and seen ice shine and had stuff following me and that in the same area, like near my house and stuff. Like, could have been this Dogman creature all along. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Sorry it was a bit scrappy. I just sort of put a few of my other encounters together. I've got a few more I'm going to talk about over the next couple of months, but I thought it might be alright to fill in the gap between now and doing a few interviews with the boys. And so hopefully next week or so, or even when we go out next weekend, I might be able to get Attila and Yowie Dan do an episode together, and we'll have a bit of fun learning about a few of their encounters and what they've been finding out in the bush for the documentary they're doing. So that'll be a heap of fun. Till then, guys, hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to like it, and if you haven't already, subscribed and share it around to your friends and that, so a few of them can do the same. And the more likes and shares and that I get's helping me out and stuff, and gets me a bit more encouragement to get out and do a bit more. So yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed it, and until next time, keep safe out there, guys. Cheers.